So my name's Jeff.
I'm Nickel. Yeah, like the coin. Nickel.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nick for short then, or?
Some call me.
Yeah.
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 Some.
If you were, like at my school, it'd be Mr. Ryman, but.
Really?
But I teach.
Yeah,
I'm a high school teacher, so
okay.
back the yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So Nick or Nickel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you believe? What do you think happens after we die?
I actually identify as like half agnostic, half atheist. And I don't really have a set belief as to what happens after we die.
Mm-hmm.
But when the thought does come to mind, I just think of myself as another like carbon-based organism, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So a lot of things happen after you die. You're just not
like the same thing that happens to animals, or
right. Like a lot of things happen after you die. They just don't include you anymore.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I mean.
Now, when you say half agnostic, half atheist, how does that work?
Well, not like half and half, but more like agnostic in the sense that you could even make the claim that everyone is agnostic. It's like no one has the definite proof.
Yes. Yeah.
So agnostic in that sense, but atheist as in I don't really never believed in that about like heaven or hell.
Mm-hmm.
I just I guess
God or higher power.
I guess I'm too grounded of not even not to a higher, not no to a power, higher power,
Mm-hmm.
just no to our base conception of like who God would be.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, but yeah, again, like to claim that there's no bigger force, just as humans, to even claim that,
Yeah.
It's a big statement. I mean, it's a big claim. It's a big take. But overall, I'm not really religious.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you grow up in any kind of a religious background, or?
No. Both my parents are. I mean, both my parents come from like religious families, but they were not religious. Not in the fact that they're not like. It's not like if they told me like, oh, we don't in this house we don't believe in anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like quite the opposite. My parents are like, hey, like whatever you want to believe, and they would explain to me like when it got to like religion,
Mm-hmm.
they would explain to me like, oh, these are the different beliefs. We have these people over here and that group of people, and some of them believe, and maybe in time in some time you'll believe something yourself. So
have you had classes in religion, or like comparative world religions, anything like that?
Well, I mean, I like to.
Or it sounds like you've thought about this a little bit.
No, yeah, for sure. Like, well,
Yeah.
religion itself, and I guess when it gets to like existentialist issues like that, or death, I do think about that a lot. Maybe not always through a religious point of view, but when
Sure.
it comes down to religion itself, I mean, I do think it's. I may have some problems with it, but I do think it's a fascinating concept on its own. Right, even if I don't subscribe to any sort of religion myself.
Yeah. Do you have you done some reading on your own? Just kind of exploring different topics?
Different groups of religions and their beliefs. I would say so.
Yeah.
But never with the end point of like converting or just like research,
Oh, yeah.
like more of the like in a historical context.
Yeah.
I guess I would say. Or
I
the
know
way it relates with like interactions between people and society.
Yeah. Are you? Can I ask, like, what are you veering towards a certain career or a certain interest?
Well, right now is like the time where like people start signing their college apps.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about that, and I'm thinking of heading into journalism.
Oh. Okay.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and because when I was your age, I was intensely interested in people and what makes them tick and what makes them function. It actually was a result of having become a Christian between my junior and senior year, and I felt like, wow, this is too good to keep to myself. How can I want to start, telling more people about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know like what what do other people believe and where are they at with it? And so I just became very interested in people and their beliefs and that sort of thing. And so when I started doing this, it's like, man, I've been wanting to do this my whole life because it's really interesting, very interesting to me. Yeah, and I've learned a lot, asking people, just about. And I've actually talked to a lot of like international students, from other countries who their only exposure is to like certain religions, other religions.
Yeah. Actually, I got a friend that goes to Back of the Arts. He's a senior, but now there too. Because you said you taught there, right?
Well, I teach in the Back of the Arts community, so the high school is actually a smaller, like an alternative high school.
Oh, okay.
For like credit recovery, that sort of thing. So, So, I guess it would be pretty hard to believe in any of the world religions, except for maybe Buddhism. I don't know. If you don't believe in a higher power.
Right. Yeah.
So, but you're saying you're open to the idea there's a higher power, but not necessarily a particular one from a.
Yeah, open in the fact that I guess there is an undeniable clockwork to the things, to the way the cosmos expands, and the similarities we see with in the DNA of like even between people and fruits, right?
Yeah.
For example. So it's not that I'm open to the idea, but I'm too small to claim that. I think we are too small to claim that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do think there's like a clockwork to like the rhythm of the universe.
Have you ever?
I just doubt that humans will ever get to like fully grasping, like understanding.
Yeah.
So if there were a higher power, the thing is, we give, when we think of higher powers, we give them human attributes, and I think that's the way, that's part of the way religious people can feel connected to that. But in my point of view, if there is a higher power, I doubt it's something that we can even begin to understand.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
Yeah, you got some very well-developed concepts, and my dad told me something that he said the mark of a truly educated person is that they know how much they don't know. And I always remembered that. And it sounds like you have a good grasp of like how complicated and how complex this universe is. It's like, how could we ever begin to understand it?
How are we not constantly going insane thinking about just like the implications of it has? It's a huge point.
One thing that so I agree. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. But I agree with what you're saying. How can that be, right?
Yeah.
How can I think that I could understand this higher being, this creator, given that I realize I'm very ignorant, and not just ignorant, but my mind doesn't even have the capacity to even comprehend the vastness of this universe and how complex it is. And so the Christian, like the biblical take on this would be to say that God made man in his own image, which means kind of like if you look into a mirror, you're seeing something that is kind of like yourself, completely like yourself, right? Except for it doesn't have three-dimensionality, it can't make noise, it doesn't smell like anything, it's an image, it's not. So the idea that God made us in a way that we can relate to our Creator in a way that no other being can, no other animal or whatever can, is basically saying maybe we don't know everything there is to know about God. And in other places in the Bible, it talks about this. It says that it gives us all the information we need to know, but maybe not all we want to know. And so I'm always running across skeptics who it's like, well, they'll ask all sorts of questions that can't be answered, and maybe aren't even that important to answer, But so the idea is that God is revealing parts of Himself to us in a way that, like, so the idea is God is the creator, we're the creation. We can't understand the creator with our small minds unless the creator reveals himself to us in a way that we can understand. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is the burden of, not proof, but the burden of the understanding would belong to God, to reveal himself to us. So is that's a different way of looking at it. So I think what I hear you saying is, in order to understand God, we have to figure him out. And we're very like scientifically oriented. We rely on our sciences to figure out truth.
So I mean, I definitely do respect when religious people have that sort of mindset. Of like different points, like those questions are real questions, but there's this other way of looking at it. About that. I've thought about like the whole thing up and down. But yeah, again, maybe because of the fact that I never subscribed to a particular religion, and even most importantly, the belief of a God. It's kind of like I understand that point.
One of the things, and I also want to be careful to say, like when I ask if you believe in a God, it doesn't necessarily have to be. I guess what I'm asking is, do you believe in a creator or a mind that has made us for a purpose, as opposed to I don't know, I guess some kind of a, like the Big Bang or whatever, we just exploded into existence, and there's no rhyme or reason for us,
So the question you're asking me is, do I believe that humans have one?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like, and of course as a Christian I would prefer, and I would provide evidence. I could provide more evidence for the Christian God, but why do that if people don't even believe in a regular God? Like a higher power of any sort.
Well, my take on like meaning and purpose. Again, it sounds very like ugly and like blunt when it's like said straight up, but I don't necessarily believe in a universal meaning or purpose for humans. Just historically, I feel like.
So you're saying it's ugly, just like to say, oh, we're here and we
ugly
have
in the way that when you might tell people like, oh, we have no meaning or we have no purpose in our lives. A lot of them can get offended. Like, oh, they don't like the thought. It's an ugly thought.
Right.
It is. And even though that's what I lean towards too, like I don't believe in a fixed purpose for fixed meaning, because I've seen things that have happened that are just simply like completely random, completely a chance. But it does not mean that because the fact that we weren't given purpose doesn't mean that we can't have purpose, right? So I rather think that purpose is something you can acquire.
Yeah.
And if anything, I would even prefer that to having to entertaining the thought of like an endpoint to our meaning or purpose. Because I like to look at it more like expanded and sprung out than simply linear, like point A and point B. Point A may be like the physical world, and then point B might be being delivered to that purpose.
Yeah. Do you have would you say you have a purpose
in life?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like my purpose is constantly like shape-shifting, I would say. I may think of a purpose in life as let's say college, right? You may say my purpose right now in life is to hopefully have a higher education and then make a purpose out of that. So I see it. I look at it more as building blocks.
Okay.
I guess then because it's hard to tell anyone what's your purpose in life.
Yeah.
Even if they might be able to give you an answer, it's changing. I don't mean like it changes like every year or so. Like it changes at
It's
the
going to
moment.
develop, yeah.
Like every moment you learn. So yeah, I don't know. It's a big cosmos, and I don't necessarily believe in a universal meaning or purpose. But just because with that mindset all is for nothing, it doesn't mean that all is for nothing.
Right.
What I'm saying?
Individually.
Yeah.
You can. Yeah. Let me ask you this. So normally, and I'll give you the information about my YouTube channel, and you'll see me talking to different people, and I try to be a good listener. I try to ask good questions. Are you familiar with Studs Terkel? You ever heard of him?
No.
He's a Chicago. He just died, but he's a Chicago icon as far as like he was a radio guy and wrote many books. He wrote books called where he just interviews people and gets to know them and asks good questions. And totally someone you should know as a aspiring journalist. And so I love his books, and I kind of see myself as like a Christian Studs Terkel as far as like asking people good questions and finding out what makes them tick, and like what
just like the
are
study
they
of people.
interested in. And I guess someday I think maybe people can look at the YouTube channel and because I also write about each conversation a little bit, and so people can kind of look through there and say, oh, here's someone who is from this background or that background.
Right. Having diversity into the mix of the conversation.
Yeah, what would the conversation be like? So I'm wondering, and this is just catching you off guard, but have you had much training in journalism at all, or is that more just something
well, I mean, along with like research stuff from high school, I guess. Like right now, I'm in a multimedia class, and the whole thing is basically like research-based combined with like entertainment. Which is actually, when I say journalism, I meant like the area of study. I'm planning on studying more like multimedia, but it includes like journalistic aspects of it. So, I mean, right now I am in a class that's considered the journalist class of the.
Well, the reason I'm asking is I'm wondering if you'd be interested. So here I am. I go to a non-denominational church in the neighborhood. It's evangelical church, that label, evangelical. So I'd be a conservative Christian. I'm, like they're in the news a lot, as far as like a lot of people say they support Trump, that sort of thing. They're part of our national conversation. It's also in the news now with Kanye West becoming a Christian. I don't know if you're familiar with him. And that whole thing. Would you? What kind of journalistic questions would you have for me? And I guess what I'm wondering is, like you're going to be in a lot of different situations where you need to talk to people and ask them and interview them and stuff like that. I don't know if you'd be interested in doing that or not.
For sure.
Otherwise, I can keep asking because I have a few more questions for you. But
I mean, you could ask them. Yeah, you could ask them.
So let me ask you this: what do you think it would take for you to believe there's a God? Like a lot of people in the world do, right? With all their heart, and people, die for their beliefs, right? And I think I just think when people say they don't or they do, they're sincere. I don't doubt that they're trying to hold something over on me. So what do you think it would take to have a belief that there is a let's just say just a creator that made you for a purpose? Put it that way.
I mean, again, direct interaction, perhaps. Again, well, the thing is, when it comes to questions like that, you look at it from the lens of human capability. So when I mean interactions, I mean like sitting down with the creator and talking to him or reveal yourself.
That's not what you're talking about, or that is?
No, it's not like. I mean, that would be enough. I know.
Right.
I would say, right? Yeah, but I mean more of an interaction with that being like.
Miracle or something.
Oh no, not really a miracle. It's more of something that I can look at and like not deny.
Yeah.
Espresso?
Thank you.
So it'd definitely be like you would need to have some kind of a, what's the word for it?
Aerial.
Yeah, empirical evidence of some
Right.
sort.
I mean that's the easy, I would say, the easy Western answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To say concrete proof. Yeah, I mean, I think it's more difficult to nowadays to kind of even consider that because not that I'm like against all its values, but I guess the development of society and my development, God's just not something that I ever felt the need for.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Which you could use and be like, well, there you go. Like, you didn't feel the need for it. Why do you? When you say that's like the reason why you don't believe in them, like maybe you never felt that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say both things are independent. You know, my lack of belief comes from more historical background of religion, the way it developed. I mean, even a few hundred years ago, people needed the belief for God. Things were too unexplainable. Things are so unexplainable now that we are so farly, we're so deeply developed with technology more than we thought we would.
Yeah.
This year, imagine how someone would feel a few thousand years ago.
Yeah.
Even a few hundred years ago.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, though, the more we learn, the more we're realizing how much we don't know.
Right.
So, like as our knowledge base grows, the edges around it are growing too, to the point where there's so much more that we don't know. If that makes sense.
Yeah. That's exactly my thought.
But I get what you're saying. Is years ago people definitely, and even still
the belief
in the
for
world
God,
today.
the belief for God, at least in a historical context, I understand it. And I understand where people come from.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that one day, somehow there was like people who were religious suddenly their minds were changed. That there wasn't. I can't begin to understand just the absolute existential fear that people have.
Yeah.
Because of so many people. I've had my own sort of mini attacks when I start thinking about it. Because it's very absurd. It is. Right?
But just life.
Undeniable. Yeah. The run of existence itself. It seems so arbitrary. So I can only begin to understand that it's from a mind that's never been trained to follow religion at all. I was never trained to not follow religion.
Yeah.
My parents were very much like, what's you?
Do you feel like you understand, for example, Christianity? Like, what's the general belief of Christianity? Or
So, like the endpoint of God.
No, just so like as Christians, we use the word the gospel as like the summary of what the Christian message is. Gospel meaning in the original language meant good news, right? Mm-hmm. But what is that good news? Are you aware of it, or do you know what the Christian gospel, Christian summary of
salvation?
Yeah, like that's a good word, but like how does that work? Like, what would you think would be if you were to describe Christianity to someone else, what you know of it, what would you say?
Well, I think Christianity is so. I think more than any other religions, you can have so much diversity in the thoughts of a Christian more than you would in a Catholic or a Muslim person, or a Jewish person.
Yeah.
So I think I respect a lot of Christians who believe more, who use their beliefs to kind of promote communal welfare.
Okay.
People,
Yeah.
a kind of universal well-being, interactions, and there's of course a lot of Christians that I do not respect.
Yeah.
And it goes for any sort of people. So when asked about like Christianity, I feel like it's almost impossible to like answer that because it's just there's so many points of views all across from Christians alone, right?
Yeah. Maybe whittling it down a little bit, like Christianity is about Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ. What would you think would be his life, his purpose, his message?
The message of Jesus?
Yeah.
I mean, without a doubt.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
I'm just wondering if you
without a doubt
read anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, given again the documented history of those times, I don't have a doubt that Jesus was a cool guy who wanted to spread positivity and a message.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not really against. It's not against like Jesus or the message.
Yeah.
Even though I don't subscribe to the message, I can appreciate the execution of it, and not appreciate some other executions of it.
Yeah.
The way people can present.
I can say as a public high school teacher, your exposure to the Christian gospel, unless you've done some work on your own, I'm pretty sure it's very, very limited. Mm-hmm. So you would actually have to like read the New Testament of the Bible. Well, parts of the Bible. It's a huge collection of books, the Bible is, but there are certain sections that could help a person just become more familiar with it.
Yeah.
And then there's other outside literature too that helps people to understand. But if you were to just rely on, say, your public school background, you're probably very,
yeah. I mean, they're very like my high school, Whitney, it's very secular in the sense that they don't promote they promote the expression of religion, never a single religion.
Right. And I've right now I'm teaching special ed, but I've also taught history and English. To teach history without religion is a real disservice because so much happened with for religious reasons.
Yeah.
Or claiming religious reasons.
Aware of that, yeah.
So it's important to understand,
it's extremely important to know about religion.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it doesn't mean conversion. It doesn't mean trying to promote well, now that you say that, I mean, high school does have, at least from my experience, classes that focus a lot on the effects of religion.
Yeah.
I mean, all sorts of history, even my law class, I'm taking philosophy this year, so that,
And it's become, just in the last couple decades, it's become kind of fashionable or whatever for history teachers to kind of be cutting edge, to teach, against established the institutions of society, so against government and against
sort of
religion, and
so
you've probably gotten a lot of that too.
Well, I mean, I have thought about how I know for like what you just said. I know for a fact that it's happened because of more like secular beliefs. But at least in my high school, that's not the experience. I think the teachers do a really good job at explaining things.
Good. That's good to hear.
As they work, right? Unless you get to like a class like philosophy where it's more of it definitely requires more of an individual aspect to it.
Yeah.
But at least in my school, I feel like
it's well-rounded. Yeah. Do you maybe I could ask a couple questions and just kind of help you have Yeah, I want to respect your time.
Yeah, that's all.
To give you kind of like a general idea of what Jesus' message was, and it's based on the Bible. I will say that, especially in a country like the United States, where a lot of people grow up in Christian households, they would call themselves Christians even though they haven't really read the Bible much or followed it, and so like you say, there is a lot of diversity within Christianity, just because people grow up in it and don't even understand their own religion, you know.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: would you consider yourself to be a good person?
I would not, just because I wouldn't feel comfortable with giving myself like those sorts of labels. I don't think you get to decide if you're a good person.
So
if people are telling you like you're being an asshole, you don't say no. You're like, all right, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But I can't completely say that. Every day I do attempt to do positive things with a good person.
Where do you think you get your idea of like what is good? What is goodness? And
again, a little welfare between people. Not hurting or marginalizing certain types of people. Just a general sense of peace and advancement towards working better as a civilization, society that's fair for people.
Yeah.
But again, small scale, as one person, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
So my goodness comes from giving people a chance.
Yeah.
Interacting
the golden
with people,
rule, treating others as
trying to understand people, see their points of views. I think we're in a place where people see other people as either this or that and nothing else.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't like.
Yeah. Trying to categorize people
right, because if you're not this, it means you're 100% that.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not 99% this to people, they make it seem like you're 100% the opposite.
Right. There's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of middle ground.
Yeah. And I would like to promote the idea of communication. I honestly believe that most people have good intentions.
Yeah.
That most people have good morals.
Yeah.
And when it gets down to good morals, I mean, it's a whole different conversation. What defines
exactly.
a good moral.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like what is good or what is moral.
Right.
And I agree, so I see a lot of commonality between people of different religions and even people of non-religious like yourself or an atheist or whatever, is that, and this comes from my Christian, from the Bible, is that the Bible says that, the whole, I don't know, have you read the Bible much or not?
I read a few passages.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're...
I read the good and the bad.
Somewhere along the way you've come across the idea, like the story of Adam and Eve and the whole beginning. And whether you take it literally or not, it's a story of the relationship of man
ultimately
to
God. The narrative that the Bible has given. I mean, it's the. I'm not sure if it's directly from the Bible, but stories like the Tower of
Babel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you can't deny that. Even if religious people don't take it literally, they take the meaning.
Yeah.
I don't deny
the whole book of Genesis is like, it just sets up a lot of different the foundation for the rest of the Bible.
Yeah.
And so one of those foundational truths is that it teaches is that man has, ever since Adam and Eve first rebelled against God by breaking the one rule they've been given, don't eat from this forbidden tree.
Right.
They were given the knowledge of good and evil, and they and their descendants, all of us, now have this moral conscience. And so We may not agree on all the details, and part of the reason we don't agree is because we're not willing, and I'm not saying you have to agree with me, but this is what the Bible teaches, is that we're not willing to allow God to be the one to set the, right and wrong. So Adam and Eve, from the very start, they're given this rule, and they say, well, but it looks like it would taste good. Maybe it would be good for us, and maybe we can be an exception to this rule. And we don't want God to tell us what to do. And so the very fact that when we're doing all the different behaviors that we do, and we break the rules from time to time, and we go against our moral conscience, we come up with excuses. And so so the moral conscience is more, I'm not saying, because someone could say, well, some people say it's okay to practice polygamy. You can have as many wives as you want. The Bible would say no, you need to have one wife. But there was even polygamy in the Bible in the earlier years, right? So there are differences between cultures and societies, and there's a lot of different influences in what we view as moral behavior and immoral behavior. But the whole idea is that we all have this sense that we're accountable to someone, and it's not ourselves, because we can't even keep our own moral conscience. We can't follow it, and we don't follow it. So the Bible says that comes from God. He's put His law in our hearts, and we know better, and yet we still do what we shouldn't do from time to time, and knowing full well that we shouldn't lie, or we shouldn't steal, or we should, treat our other people as we want to be treated. The things that we should do and things that we should avoid. And so, like if we've broken those, then religion comes into play as far as like, well, how can we right our behavior? If there's a God, the atheist might say, not to anyone else because they don't want to admit that they think there might possibly be a God, or the religious person is like, well, how can I be good in God's eyes? What are the religious hoops I should go through to prove myself, or what are the good moral deeds I should do, to kind of pay for the bad that I've done, And so, and I'm just kind of trying to sum up this, this gospel message real quick, because I don't want to. If you have any questions, let me know. But I also want to kind of make it brief, But so the idea is that our relationship with God is broken. From Adam and Eve on, we are not walking in harmony with God, which doesn't mean it's like God is our friend. It's more like God is our God. Like we're obeying Him, we're carrying out His will, and our relationship is broken. It has been broken, from through the generations. And so the Bible explains that God let us go our own way, basically cursed us with that. And so the different problems that you see in the world are due to us going against God, because the Garden of Eden was perfect, but now we have, danger and death, and we look around the world and we wonder, well, why is it so bad? If there's a God, why wouldn't God clear this up, right? And so
I get that.
There's a lot of philosophers and a lot of teaching about, like, if God is so good, why is the world messed up? But the idea is that it is messed up, and we're messed up, and we're not. Ultimately, our relationship with God is not what God created it to be. Right. And the main problem coming between us and God is the fact that we've sinned, we've broken His laws, and God is a God of goodness, which means He's loving, He's kind, He's merciful, but He's also just, and justice is a good thing. Justice means there must be a consequence for bad behavior.
Sure.
So the justice of God would require that, a just punishment. If you're in a court of law, and the judge's job is to make sure justice is meted out, right?
Right.
So if
there's a difference between paying me 25 I would say, $25, ticket because you crossed the red light, as opposed to serving a life sentence. Because you killed someone.
Yeah.
So I would say my objection would be in putting that whole story about the minor corruption behind from the Al story is that if the kind of miscommunication with God or that sort of disconnect, like lack of harmony, as you were saying, between God, can be seen from across the world, from again, like starvation, right? Natural disasters, all sorts of crazy bad things that you say. My objection would come from the fact that the punishment is just. The way I see it is, there's no way eating an apple could ever lead to that without, I would say, having a corrupt being itself recharge.
Yeah.
And that's when I look at things from the point of view of like, all right, let's say there is a God, right? If I'm thinking about like, let's say there's a God, I'm not thinking about it as let's say I now believe, or let's say I'm not saying I'm going to think about it as if I do believe, or I'm going to think about it as if I don't believe. Because if God was a fact, the way that I'm sure most religious people would like it to be as in everyone, like a given fact, give everyone, right? If there was a God, people wouldn't not believe or believe in him. It would just be there, right?
Well, I mean, I can tell you, the Bible actually says it pleases God that we have faith. So it's a faith-based relationship.
Yeah. And again, if people don't have faith, let's say if people don't have faith, you personally would agree that it means there's some sort of corruption within the person that perhaps needs guidance, or if it's a completely faithless person at all, they either receive a punishment or don't receive the reward, right? Would you say that?
I'm not sure. Say that again now.
Right. So if a person is faithless, would you agree?
Like an unbeliever.
Right. Let's say. Yeah. You would believe that that person needs a sort of guidance to reach faith, or that if ultimately they don't have faith at the end, they they're either punished in the way that God would see just, or not receive the reward that God would see just, right?
Yeah, I mean it's so faith is, in my experience, I began to believe when I was 17, and I can't say that I did anything to deserve it. It's not like why did I start believing as a Christian? Well, I did have a lot of church background, growing up. My parents brought me to church. I had some exposure to the Bible.
Yeah.
I had some other people that came in my life that, told me about the Bible. It's not like I came to a place where I said, okay, I'm going to believe or I'm not going to believe.
You just did.
It was more like I had to say, do I believe? Here's the message.
And you're going.
And it's like, you know what? I got to be honest with myself and say, I do believe this. So that's my experience. Other people might say, well, I made a decision to believe. I don't know. They might say that.
Right.
But I'll just say that, and so I've come to believe it's a gift that God has given me early in my life.
Have that.
And it's not something that God owes anyone. So the idea is that we have all sinned, we've broken God's laws, we've rebelled against Him. What He owes us, what His justice would owe us, is punishment for having done that. But the opposite of justice is grace, mercy. God has given me grace. It's amazing because I don't deserve it. The whole song, Amazing Grace. It's something that is given when we hear the message and we respond favorably to it. And I don't even think I had the ability to respond favorably to it. It's more like I believe.
Yeah.
What am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
And so if someone hears this message later on in life when they're 80, what a blessing for them.
Yeah.
God didn't guarantee that anyone would hear it. So what is the message? The message is that it's not a message of just be a loving person, or God is loving, or God forgives you for no reason. The price of forgiveness, because God being just would require that there is a punishment for breaking his laws, it's just that someone else could pay that punishment for us.
Right.
So this is what Jesus did on the cross, paid the punishment in our place.
Yeah.
And so that's the good news of the gospel. It doesn't make sense without the idea that without him paying that penalty, we would have to pay it.
Right.
Kind of like if you drove through did some horrendous act and you owe $1 million fine for it, if that was the way the justice system worked. If someone said, you know what, Nickel, I paid your fine for you, you're free to go, and you're like, what did I do? Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
But, that's fine. You can take your money and spend it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so part of the message of the good news is the bad news that we are sinful, that we have sinned, that we are indebted to God, because of his justice. The good news is that Jesus paid that fine for us.
And again, when you look at all of these things, it always comes down to one of the main points being self-betterment. And again, the good state between the people. I do see it that way, except that instead of thinking of God, well, it's not like instead of his place, it's just simply the reason I try to be a good person is simply positively for myself and the care I have for every other fool that's walking around the supremacists of the cosmos. Right?
Yeah. So you're saying you try to be a good person just to bring goodness into the world, right? Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah.
For yourself and for others.
Yeah, more of a kind of the word of Confucianism, for example. When people start doing good acts, they're as minimal as you may think that an individual's act is, it eventually will start gaining
the butterfly effect.
Exactly.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah, exactly.
You've heard of that?
Yeah. With everyone else around you, sort of this harmony between the people.
And I think it's good to do good just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's probably what you're saying too, right? I mean,
Right.
Why does there have to
is,
be strings attached?
The thing is, I don't. The only difference would be that I don't expect a divine reward.
Yeah.
My divine reward is knowing that people are doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that I'm doing fine to my full extent, and that if people are doing fine because of me, great. If people are doing bad because of me, let's try to change that.
Yeah.
Let's try to see how we can change that. And the thing is, when you start saying, what's good and what's bad, well, just like every single concept, it evolves with humanity, right? It evolves with our understanding or misunderstanding of the world. Because I think for every realization we have that we have no idea what's going on and everything beyond our comprehension, we do grow and gain more human-based intellect of each other. Mm-hmm. I think if we're, without without mentioning religion or anything, if we are stranded in some big rock in space that's floating around a giant star, shoot, I lost my point. I was had.
Well, I think you're talking about morality is developing, and that we're doing it without religion.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
So if we're all on this planet, why would you not? It's only logical to focus on the things that you can't understand, and I think at least compared to the standards of thousands of years ago, I think our overall morality as a human species is gaining some progress.
And I would actually say I think so too. A lot of it's based on comes from technological progress and a higher standard of living, and a lot of it comes, I believe. Well, I don't want to say most of it, but a lot of it comes from Western civilization, which is Judeo-Christian, has a Judeo-Christian foundation. So what I'm saying is we're blessed by, all people are blessed by what I would say is the Christian influence in the world. But there are other influences too.
Yeah.
So.
And then again, it becomes an endless conversation when you, for example, you start saying that for example, the Christian's values exist, and later that became an overall morality that we follow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with that morality, some other people start following that Christianity as well.
Mm-hmm.
I see the same thing, except it's backwards. I think there had to be a set of values, and it's undefined whether they're good. And you can say there's bad values and good values, whatever those means to you.
Mm-hmm.
And from both of those, if this is Christianity and these are the values, I believe the values came first, and then from both of those, religion came along. Because from my point of view, religion has done beautiful things. It has expanded trust within people, reach. The fact that most people seem to be comfortable when it comes down to that's kind of a belief of something else out there, or belief that it was not all in vain. We're not some fireflies that some kid trapped in a jar. I believe that religion's brought a lot of good things. I believe this religion. I could not imagine if you want to call it a better world that we live in today. I could not imagine that better world happening without religion. But I'm never going to deny that religion has brought some of the most horrible facts that humankind has seen. So again, it's not.
It's easy to justify actions if religion's involved.
Right. It's not a fight of, all right. Well, is there more good or is there more evil? It's the fact that they both exist. And I think it's more complex than being given an arbitrary set of don't follow kind of rules. You said we weren't owed lifetimes, or grace, right? Yeah. You're right. And you can apply that to existence too. We're not owed anything. I'm not demanding I'm way past demanding a reason for cosmos or answers. I know it's not that I don't deserve them. It's just that it's not my place as a human. It's not. Yeah. It wasn't even not meant for me. It's just simply, that's how things work. So for the same reason that God does not always, again, looking at it from the lens of, let's say, God does not always grace. But then we shouldn't be given guilt either of an apple that was eaten. That's what I don't subscribe to. The thought of humans being born sinful from the beginning. I feel a lot of the times it's a fear tactic, and I hope from just the half an hour that we've been talking. you're a very, very rational man. Even if a lot of people kind of don't really see religion and rationality together, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's an idea that you understand the fact that.
It sounds to me like you've heard like the whole term original sin. You probably have heard that before.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that, we're guilty because of Adam and Eve and what they did. And so how can we be blamed for what they did? Or, So, first of all, what they did was so much more than just eating this fruit, right? Like what made it
the word of
it's rejecting God's right to rule, God's sovereignty,
Right.
So, and how could that lead to the rest of the sins of the world? Well, the very next generation, within a chapter or two, one of their children is killing the other one. I mean, So it's like once we start disrespecting God, So they knew it was wrong because God said, "Don't do this," and they did it anyway. So then we are given the knowledge of good and evil. So now there's a lot of things we know that are wrong. So let me ask you, as far as just personally, have you told lies in your life?
Absolutely.
So you'd be a what?
I'd be a sinner.
Well, just a
liar.
A liar, right? Have you ever taken anything that didn't belong to you?
Maybe
downloaded something that's not yours, or take credit for something someone else did, or
well, not that. No, but I did your thing. Yeah, we've all done.
To be a thief,
right?
In a way.
Sure.
Whatever. If you knew it was wrong at the time, it's like, man, I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to take this, or I'm going to.
Yeah.
Have you ever used God's name disrespectfully? I mean, sure. You say you don't believe God exists, but yeah. To me, that one, I'm talking about the 10 Commandments, and that's one of them that I never really, I didn't use God's name disrespectfully, but I always thought, okay, on the scale of these different commandments, one of them is don't murder, right? Why would it be wrong to say the wrong word, right?
Right.
But once people start disrespecting the name of God, then they disrespect God's rules, then they disrespect everything those rules represent, which 6 of the 10 Commandments have to do with our relationships with other people, and 4 of them have to do with our relationship with God.
Right.
And so it's like the foundation of.
No, yeah, I get that. As soon as you start seeing corruption and you don't kind of bubble it in, it starts expanding.
Yeah.
I completely get that.
And so.
But I would also disagree. I would say that if a being all powerful, that's God, I don't think. Well, again, it may sound contradictory to say that that's not God's place, because you would imagine that any place is God's place, right? Mm-hmm. But it's, I just can't imagine how an all-loving God that has, all the would have such pride in his name. You understand? Right?
Would God have the right to be?
It's extremely to be mad that you're.
No, would God have the right to be proud or proud of?
Well, the thing is, if he is it, in the most specific and ambiguous means that you could say he would be the.
He would be the it.
Everything.
He would be like the glue that holds this whole world together. That's like for me, it's like the way I see it. Every breath I take is a gift from God. It's like I can't make myself.
It's part of his mechanics.
I can't even make my heart beat.
Right.
So he could take me out in a second.
Right.
Like every atom, every proton. It's like everything, every law of nature would be God would be the lawgiver. He would be the one holding everything in place and aware of what he's doing. And so to compare God to a person, you were talking about we've kind of created God in our own image.
Pride shouldn't be something that something is God. I mean, not even someone is God, because when you think about it as
the problem with pride and things like jealousy. I I oftentimes try to bring that up because it's like the most, God, the Bible says God's name is jealousy. In other words, God identifies, like God says he is light and he is, a life, and he is jealousy. In other words, it's something God identifies as. I am jealous. I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. Why is God jealous? Or prideful? Why would he be arrogant or anything? If he's a person, like if we're reducing God down to like another human being, no one has the right to be so jealous that they think that the whole universe should revolve around them and that we should bow down and worship them, because they're just a person just like ourselves.
The Almighty.
But if he truly is, so if not God, what else should our lives revolve around? What else should we worship? Not ourselves.
And I think
not any created thing.
I think a lot of that is due to the fact that people, again, not to sound, I'm not sure if attempting to sound kind of nihilist when I speak of these things, but it's that historically planted thought that our lives have to been given a meaning.
Yeah.
I think that's a flaw in us. We're not owed a meaning. We're not owed enlightenment. We're not owed grace.
Yeah.
We're not owed an answer. We don't need to count on a purpose being given to us. So when it comes down to those basics, even the talk of considering it, all right, well, let's see, why would God be prideful? Even that reduces to like a minor issue. It comes down to a conversation between the dependence that people have had historically on God. Mm-hmm. And I think God, just like many things, is against something that is built on. And you could call it, the understanding of the intellect. Other people call it, that's how history rolled. People trying to understand people, society.
Yeah. There's a way to read the Bible, for example, and actually Chicago Public Schools teach this class. It's called the Bible as Literature. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No. Some schools have it, some don't. But really it's approaching the Bible like man wrote it. And so if you read it, so it's possible to read the Bible through this lens where everything that's in there is invented by man and come up with by man, and so that's what I hear you, the lens that you're looking at it from. The other lens would be, God
told us,
inspired it. God, it was written by people, about 40 different people.
Yeah.
The amazing thing to me is how much the narrative is the same throughout the Bible and how they agree on who God is and what He's done in history. But the purpose for God for our life and for creating us, the Bible says clearly throughout, is to bring glory to Himself. So it's not that God exists for us, or that it's all man-centered, or for our happiness, or for anything else. That God made His creation to glorify Himself. Not just, and even not just people. All creation.
Yeah.
Like in different ways. And to glorify, what that means is to make known, or to make it plain. And so, God being a God of love, how did God express His love before anything was created? Well, there was a loving relationship between, as Christians, like the Bible says, there's the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Like there's a.
Yeah.
But other than that, God expresses His love now in physical ways through people. Mm-hmm. How can God's power, His might over those who would oppose Him, how can that be made plain? Well, now He has those who oppose Him. So there's so if God's purpose was to make us happy, then if God gets jealous, when we don't seek Him out, then that would be pretty pathetic, I think. But if God is, if His purpose is to be God, you know, to be who He is, and to create us in a way where we live out who we are. When we don't live out who we are or who we're meant to be, then God is jealous for that. He wants us to live out our purpose for creation.
I get that kind of image of God looking at His creations as if He was literally looking at a reflection of Him, you know, an expression of Him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So we were made
that.
for a purpose and designed for a purpose, and it's not maybe what we normally think it is.
Yeah.
We're very man-centered. We think it's all about us.
Yeah.
And the Bible says, no, it's not about you. It's about God.
Yeah.
You know, being God and being glorified as such. So I have really enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah.
I usually don't try to talk to high school students just because, to be honest, a lot of the times I ask questions. Are you familiar with the term a deer caught in headlights?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just like, I don't know.
Okay.
And I appreciate your, you know, I feel like I'm talking to a graduate student from.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. Are you getting straight A's in school?
You know what? I have a B in the class that I just told you about.
Oh, really?
But that's because of late assignments, not because of my academic performance.
And I don't have much. I've always taught in schools that are not at a level of Whitney Young. So
Even people there are kind of, you know, sometimes it's hard to talk about a lot of things.
Yeah, but I appreciate your.
I mean, really, the whole thing was we obviously have different points of views.
Yeah, and I love to be able to.
But I think
give some pushback in a rational way. And hear each other's point of view.
You are the part of religion that I respect and that I look at and be like, how can you blame humans or not blame, but how could that not? How could faith not make sense to them?
Yeah.
You know?
It's something very, very important to me, but at the same time, I view my becoming a Christian as like a miracle. And I can't, like, as much as I would like to share that with other people, I can't convince anyone myself. So my purpose for these conversations is not to convince, it's more to
it's an interaction. It's
educate, or to just talk about.
It's a flow of thoughts, disruptions.
And hopefully, a lot of times, people don't have maybe an accurate view of the Bible or the gospel message, and so I try to provide that a little bit, and hopefully inspire people to maybe read the Bible a little bit for themselves. So I would love to challenge you to do that. It's been the central book of Western civilization, so why not become familiar with it?
Sure.
And then hopefully you'll have lots of conversations like this as a journalist with people that are of different mindsets.
Hopefully.
And,
that's what I'm trying to do.
I try to set that example. I'm trying to, like I say, set a good example for other Christians through the video channel. Just to say it doesn't have to be a debate or an argument. We can just
conversation.
And part of that involves trying to be a good listener.
It's exactly my own mindset.
So very, very good. And I'll turn this off and I'll give you the information.
I can write it down.